Next month, July, is all about self-acceptance at Key for Change. I'm going to be talking about my own journey of self-acceptance because there was a time in my life when I absolutely loathed myself. And when I loathed myself, when I didn't like myself, I don't think I actually knew it, to be quite frank. Sometimes you don't actually know you don't like who you are. However, if you looked at the people I allowed around me and how I was treated, and the fact that I'd be violated, dude might be cheating on me, and there'd be dramas, girls ringing my phone and knocking doors, then I would, to some degree, listen to his epic story and buy into that, believe that, and accept that person back into my life. And so the abuse and the liberty taking just increased naturally, because when people know that they could take advantage of you, they do. So self-acceptance is a journey. You don't just wake up one day feeling like, boom, I accept myself and all my flaws. No, self-acceptance is a process. And I think the most important thing about that, and I talk about that in my book, Why Love Hurts, and I also speak about that in my workshop, Feel Loved, is because self-acceptance is going to be acutely attached to your inner voice. If you have a harsh inner critic, I often call Cruella De Vil in my book and in my workshops, a voice where you be up on yourself, where you say the most heinous things to yourself, and you wouldn't even say that to a friend, then that is going to be a massive issue in terms of you accepting yourself as you are. And I have good days and I have bad days. And I guess if I wasn't a therapist, I could talk more about my bad days, but people would find that particularly alarming. Like, oh my God, Key, don't say you struggle. Like, of course I struggle. It's a battle, and sometimes more so at certain times than at other times. But what I fundamentally know is that I have the power to change situations. I have to focus my mind, and I have to do what I did before in terms of leaving my job, leaving the probation service. What did I do? I strategized against that, and I had a vision and a dream, yet I needed people around me to support that. So that's my inner circle. And so, self-acceptance is hard sometimes, to accept yourself as you are. But as Whitney Houston says, learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. And so this month, I'm going to be creating posts and videos about self-acceptance. And actually, you know what? As I sit here in Jamaica today, one massive benefit of my mother sending me to Jamaica when I was around 11, up until I was about 16, she used to send me here every year, was being mixed. Having a black mum and a white dad was very confusing growing up in London, especially because there was also class differences. So like, my dad lived in the suburbs and my other siblings went to private school. My mum, we grew up in an estate in northwest London, St. Ralph's, whoop whoop. And so I grew up with a deep sense of inadequacy, never feeling good enough, comparing myself to my other siblings who had a better lifestyle. I felt deeply inadequate. And I think that's given rise to an inferiority complex that has stayed with me, that I'm aware of. I'm in relationship with it. I know when it comes up, and I've got my inner circle to assist me with that part of myself. But if we're gonna be talking about self-acceptance, then we need to be talking about how we feel about ourselves. And I think one of the massive benefits of my mum sending me to Jamaica when I was younger was that coming to Jamaica, yes, whilst they have this whole thing about shadism and being lighter skinned is better and all of that nonsense, what it taught me was that, like, growing up in Northwest, I was fed a very narrow definition of what it meant to be black. So if you did well at school, that weren't cool. That's not what the black kids did. So it's like you had to be, I don't know, like I failed all of my GCSEs. I didn't do well at school at all. It was only when I went to college and they wanted to put me into the very basics class that my teacher at school said, listen, Keeley's a bright girl, she's just never applied herself. And so what Jamaica taught me was that there are no narrow definitions to being black. If you like Michael Bolton and Celine Dion, it doesn't mean you're less black. It just means you like Celine Dion. And Jamaica taught me that you could be an educated black person and you're still black. Whereas growing up in Brent, it was like, oh, well, you weren't cool if you educated yourself. That was like what the Asian kids did, especially the Asian kids, because there wasn't many white kids in my school. So I'm really grateful that my mother sent me here when I was young, because it broadened my horizons in many ways and exposed me to a bigger philosophy, a bigger understanding about what it means to be black and to come from this background. And it exposed me to the history, the legacy of slavery, colonialism, in terms of, what happened after the war when people were sent for the Windrush. So there's so much of coming to Jamaica that is a part of who I am, that I'm incredibly proud of and appreciative, because it taught me to think bigger than the kind of narrow thinking that I've been exposed to growing up on my estate. And so when I'm thinking about self-acceptance, I have to be thinking about an inferiority complex, because an inferiority complex is what makes us not feel good enough. And it's also linked to that harsh inner critic, the voice inside of you where you berate yourself, you put yourself down, and you are your own worst enemy. I think potentially we all have that voice. I could be wrong. People will let me know if I am wrong. But self-acceptance is very much linked to the harsh inner critic within you, that voice within you that tells you you're never good enough, you're not pretty enough. And so we have to be very mindful of what that inner dialogue is going on with you. In addition, self-acceptance is also about developing your inner care bear. I did a video on that, which my daughter thinks my angles are really bad. She kind of teased me about that, but hey ho. It was a popular video though, right? Dress up as a care bear, and it gets more engagement. I get people contacting me, so it resonates with people. So if you struggle to accept who you are, then what will be profound is your relationships around you. Your relationships around you will indicate that, and your capacity to tolerate nonsense and your capacity to not have a voice is also going to be interlinked with self-acceptance. And so I'm going to be thinking about, while I'm here, how I can make material engaging and thoughtful to assist you with learning, taking the journey to self-acceptance. Because remember, it's a journey. Sometimes that voice in your head can kick off. Sometimes you can have seasons in your life where you just don't like who you are, or you berate your appearance, or you're in a season where you tolerate nonsense, or you invite other people back into your life. And if so, we've all been there. It's not good to judge. It's always better to understand, yeah? Because judgment doesn't do anything for people. It shuts people down and it silences them. So if anything about what I've said resonates with you, and you're in a season of self-hate, or it's just been something throughout your whole life, inbox Key. And I would encourage you to think about purchasing my book, Why Love Hurts, because that also talks about the journey of knowing your worth, and that is like fundamental to the quality of your life. So look out for my posts on self-acceptance, and if you're struggling and you need me to do a video, inbox your girl Key, and I'll be only too happy. Tell a friend, share this video if it's helpful. Take care of you, because if you don't, who will?